is the simple law of action and reaction. As you sow, that you shall also reap. So the universe is very fair. We cannot get away from our actions. The Vedas talk about three kinds of karmas. One is the Sanchit karma. This is your accumulated karmas of innumerable lifetimes, which we have forgotten, but the divine remembers and keeps an account. The moment you are discontented with your lot, the unhappiness begins. Now the millionaire wants to be a billionaire, the billionaire wants to be Adani, Ambani, etc. You can deceive the whole world, but you can't deceive God. Lack of forgiveness actually came from lack of understanding of the world. Somebody may be a nice person, but if I believe this person is a crook, then I will live in the reality that he is a crook. So our beliefs are defining our reality. Our religion will please your grandmother. Spirituality will please God.
What are the three ways to dissolve our ego?
There is the concept of Johari window.
What is it that people are chasing by awakening spirituality?
The awakening they are talking about is just a divine experience.
Namaste and welcome to the Journey Within podcast with me, Shobha Rana. With this podcast, my aim is to help you first understand and then eventually take your journey within to understand your inner world, where we do the processing, the emotional processing of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and events, the things that happen to us. If we can somehow manage or regulate this emotional processing, then we can create major breakthroughs for ourselves in the outer world, in the lives that we are leading. We can create more happy, more fulfilled, more peaceful lives for ourselves. So that is my aim, and I hope that you'll watch the episode till the end so that some real learning and transformation can happen. In today's episode, I am in conversation with Swami Mukudanandaji, who is a Vedic scholar and philosopher. He is an IIT and IIM graduate who left all his pursuits in this material world to go after his higher calling, which was to learn about spirituality and eventually teach it to humans to enrich their lives. In today's episode, we have talked about spirituality in depth, the hidden potential of human mind, the limitations with logic, how logic comes in the way of faith and emotions. We have also talked about spiritual awakening. Is it a one-time event or an ongoing process? And what really lies at the end of the spiritual chase? Why should we go after or practice spirituality? All of this interesting conversation can really lead you to some wonderful transformation in your life. So I recommend you that you watch this episode till the end. Thank you so much. And now let's get into today's episode with Swami Mukudanandaji. Please welcome Swami Mukudanandaji on the Journey Within podcast. Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste, Shobhaji. Thank you for the invitation.
I am so happy to meet you, Swamiji. I have been trying to have you on the Journey Within podcast for many, many months now. I have heard your teachings on various platforms, and you simplify the concept of spirituality so much. Before I get into the practical aspects of life where we can unlock our full potential, our mind's potential through the lens of spirituality, I want to start with your journey. Swamiji, what exactly happened? Is there a life-changing event that happened which led you to pursue spirituality? Because you're an IIT graduate, you're an IIM alumnus. What led you on this spiritual quest?
Shobhaji, this question comes up often. What happened? Was there some disaster, some tragedy? Well, actually, people don't realize that spirituality is an intrinsic need of our personality. We all long to connect with something sacred in our life. We all long to find some meaning and purpose beyond the mundane. We all long to improve ourselves and manifest our real potential. Now, as an engineer, I was learning a very reductionist point of view of the world. That this world has been made just by atoms and molecules. There was a big bang, and there's nothing beyond that. And that was just not satisfying the spiritual need in me. Now, a time came when that quest became extremely intense. Actually, after IIT, when I went to IIM, now I was exposed to the humanities subjects. sociology, psychology, organizational behavior, and the like. And then the same unfulfilled need became deeper, that all this knowledge is still not addressing the bigger questions in my life. Who am I? Why did I come to this world? What is my purpose after all? What is the purpose of the world? So, this quest took me to the Vedic knowledge. And I connected with it so deeply that the conviction came very naturally that this is the truth, whatever I have understood. And then I started practicing it. And the consequence of practicing was that the mind got connected to the divine. And that became then the singular purpose in my life. So moving into the spiritual path did not require any effort. It was a very, very natural process.
Swamiji, the reason I'm asking this question is because the way we are raised in our families or through our education system, we are somewhere pushed to become more and more logical and analytical in our thinking. You're yourself an IIT graduate, so I'm sure you are a very analytical person yourself. You were that. So, how does a person who has a very logical sense of kind of speculating life or experiencing life understand spirituality? I have friends who are young parents, and they also say and take a lot of pride in saying that my kid understands only logic. If I counter him with the logic, he will understand. So how does that young mind, impressionable logical mind, accept spirituality?
People who are novio scientists, they use science as a rod to hammer philosophy. But people who are at the cutting edge of science, they realize the limitations of science. So it is a misplaced conception that science is based completely on logic. And the thing that disturbed me during my engineering education was the number of assumptions that were being made in technology. So, for example, if gas is flowing through a turbine, what is the temperature gradient? Now, they come up with a certain formula. So, where did this formula come up from? It's an assumption. You assume a model and then you move ahead. And then I realized that science is not as sacrosanct as you make it out to be. And then the simple question that if there are laws in this world, there must be a lawmaker as well. Now, if the question of how did laws come into existence is not being addressed, then the logic is not reaching its ultimate destination. Besides that, Shobhaji, think about it a little more philosophically. There is a common sense of logic through which I can explain to you and you can understand. Where did this absolute logic come from? If the world is all just atoms and molecules, you could have your own sense of logic, which is perfectly coherent to you, which doesn't match with anyone else. But we all understand something as logical or illogical. So I was using logic and realizing its limitations. Now, what happens is in spirituality is that you have to suspend logic, but not blindly. You understand to a certain extent and then realize that at one point that suspension will be required. So it's a conscious choice of placing your faith somewhere, not again blindly, but out of a sense of understanding. That was my journey.
I also want to have this conversation about emotions versus logic. A lot of the behavior that we exhibit and the emotional processing that we do, that is not based in logic. However much pride we take in being logical, and however much we, say that, oh, we are very logical people and all of that. But when it comes to emotions or processing of the events those are happening in my life, that is hardly logical. So, how does one understand this unwavering faith? How does one cultivate faith? And how does one balance their emotional processing?
We have these two aspects to our personality. One is the head, and the other is the heart. The head wants to hold on to logic. The heart values emotions more than logic. Now, you always come across people who are emotional and they say, logic doesn't have importance in my life. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum. So, Actually, a well rounded personality would be one who has got both these aspects. The emotions must be there, the cultivation of the heart, but in accordance with the head. Otherwise, then bina break ki gadi maut ki savari. Unrestrained emotions can get a person into trouble. So, how to cultivate proper faith? Now, some people, they are arriving at faith merely by hearsay. People said, कि भाई real estate is the thing of the times and you invest. Okay, five people told me this must be it. They developed the faith. Others, based on limited experience, I went for 2 interviews and failed, and now I can never pass in any interviews. That wrong faith has developed. And the third is by our own environment. Like in America, they say that the son of a Democrat is a Democrat, the son of a Republican is a Republican, how you grew up. But our Vedas say this is not the way to develop beliefs, which are such an important aspect of your personality. Then, how to do it? You cultivate your beliefs based on good knowledge. Just like 700 years ago, the Western world thought that the earth is flat. And then suddenly everybody's belief changed. No, the earth is round. How did that change happen? When they came across some good, reliable knowledge. That is why, if we want to develop beliefs that will empower us, that will help us manifest our potential, they must be based on good knowledge. And that knowledge you get from the sacred books, from the enlightened sages. Receive that knowledge, cultivate faith on the basis of that knowledge, and then let the heart develop emotions that are concurrent to that faith.
Swamiji, what is the right place to kind of absorb this knowledge from? Is there a gateway or an entry point into spirituality? Are there certain books or certain practices that you'd like to recommend that one can kind of get their head start into spirituality with?
Now, people come from different traditions. So it's natural that the tradition from which they come, they will access the holy books of that tradition. Since I am from the Vedic tradition, we have 3 entry points. This is called the Prasthan Trai, 3 gateways to Vedic knowledge. The first is the Brahma Sutra. The second is the Ekadash Upanishads, on which Shankaracharya wrote his commentaries. And the third is the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the Upanishads are quite abstruse. The Brahma Sutra, people feel it's too difficult to understand. The Gita has 700 verses. So people say, yes, this is convenient. That is one entry point. And the second, of course, is satsang. When you associate with holy personalities, in fact, the Bhagavatam goes to the extent of saying, Shrinvataham swakatham Krishna punya shravana kirtanaha. Says, look, you are troubled by the inauspicious things in the heart. Do one thing, hear divine discussions from the mouth of enlightened sages, and that will automatically wash away this dirt. So, satsang exposes you to divine knowledge and helps you associate with good people and thereby develop good beliefs.
I want to ask to you about you finding your guru. I've read about Jagat Guru Kripaluji Maharaj ji, whose teachings you have taken, and you've also established a different form of yoga called JK Yoga with it. So, how did you find your guru, and how does one that is in the quest of learning from someone sacred, someone who has realized knowledge, how do we find our gurus?
Sometimes, if you were connected with a realized sage in the past life and you began the journey but did not complete it, now the universe knows what you did. And in this life, you are given the fruits. So that connection happens very naturally without even trying. And that is why my Gurudev, he commented once कि इसने तो हमको ऐसे पहचाना जैसे कोई बच्चा अपनी माँ को पहचानता. And then he wrote to me, his first letter was that you were mine in the past. So it was like a journey that was continuing. But if somebody did not have that connection in the past life, now in this life you realize you need a teacher. As in anything else, a mentor can make a huge difference. In your profession, if you get a mentor, they can give you certain tips that can leapfrog your career. In health, a mentor can just add one little bit of information that can transform your health, like it is in spirituality. Swami Vivekananda said, the living secrets must be passed down from master to disciple in every science, much more so in spiritual science. So now that need is realized that I need to find a spiritual teacher how to do it. The best way is to associate with many in the first instance. Quietly, just go and sit down, listen to what they have to say, absorb whether their teachings resonate with you, whether the path they are offering is as per your own sanskars, the proclivities of your mind, and maybe even take just a couple of steps and then decide that where did I get the maximum spiritual benefit from? After that, alongside with this, we must ourselves have a deep hunger. When we have that hunger, the Supreme who's sitting inside will lead us to the right teacher and also provide the faith from inside. So our effort and the divine grace help create that connection.
You know, Swamiji, there are such fascinating stories about seekers finding their gurus. You know, like you said, कि आपके गुरु ने कहा कि तुमने मुझे ऐसे पहचाना जैसे एक बच्चा अपनी माँ को पहचानता है. ऐसे ही I was reading about Valmiki ji, how he got his knowledge from Narad Muni. How Steve Jobs found his guru in Neem Karoli Baba, who was not even present in physical form at that point. So there are some really fascinating stories about people finding their gurus, and sometimes these gurus are not even in the physical form present. You know, like you said, from some past karma, some impressions of that, some fruits of that are kind of fructifying in this life. From here, I want to steer the conversation towards karma, like you talked about it, basically our actions. So please help me understand the basic principles of karma theory, how karma actually works.
The karma theory is the simple law of action and reaction. As you sow, that you shall also reap. So the universe is very fair. We cannot get away from our actions. However, people don't realize that this is not some harshness on the part of the universe. Rather, the ultimate goal is to help us grow and evolve. It's just like a criminal in the court. The judge pronounces a sentence of 3 years imprisonment. And the criminal says, this judge is such a terrible judge and he's giving such a harsh punishment. The judge says, I am not your enemy. What you did, the proof is out. And I am bestowing this verdict to help you improve. The purpose of the law of karma is to help the soul in its evolutionary journey. The whole universe wants us to grow and reach the ultimate perfection that is there in our soul. So, whether it is the law of karma or any other law of the universe, they are not our enemies. They are only our friends. We must keep learning and keep utilizing them for our benefit.
Swamiji, are the laws of universe absolute?
Absolutely. The laws of the universe are unbiased. And that is why we can have faith in them. कि भाई कोई गवर्नमेंट में किसी को हो सकता है, you can sway them with a little temptation, but you cannot sway the universe. That is why people, when they get cheated in the world, a poor person says, सेठ जी कर लीजिए जो करना है, मेरा आपका फैसला भगवान के यहाँ होगा. Now, that poor man is not a saint, but even a commoner has this faith that worldly people may cheat, the universe will not cheat. So, we can expect that these laws are absolute. If I do the right things, I will definitely attract a right destiny. At the same time, these laws are a little intricate. Like, for example, there is the law of grace. No matter what your karma, if grace intervenes, it is all absolved. And you say, how unfair that is. But that grace will also follow laws. If somebody is unconnected with the divine, then the law of karma is applicable. But the moment you start the process of surrender, now you start going beyond it, and the law of the grace starts becoming applicable.
Your words are so reassuring, Swamiji, because when we deal with life, when we navigate through life everyday basis, it's become a common knowledge that the world is not fair, the world is biased. We don't live in a world that is equal. Everybody does not have equal opportunity. Everybody does not have equal kind of circumstances or goes through, events and things in their life. Some people experience way more trauma than the others, and everybody's journeys unfold in a in a very individual manner. So, why I'm asking this is that where is the role of your destiny, what you have accumulated through your karmas, come into play, and how much is it really in your hands? How much can you actually do to shape your future in this life?
This is a very common question in the minds of Indians because they do have this innate sense of destiny, and then the question arises, to what extent does destiny control me? The Vedas talk about three kinds of karmas. One is the Sanchit karma. This is your accumulated karmas of innumerable lifetimes, which we have forgotten, but the divine remembers and keeps an account. And then every time he sends us, he gives us one portion of the Sanchit, that look, this portion of your karmas you bear in this life. And that becomes the prarabdha karma. That is what we call destiny with which you were born. Now there's a third karma, which is kriyaman, which you do by your own free will. So at every moment, we have a free will, no matter what the destiny. That kriyaman is in your hands. So we must not overplay the importance of destiny. Otherwise, we will reduce our present effort. It is just like if you are cycling and you come across a hill, you don't stop there. You put in more effort and go up. Likewise, sometimes bad destiny comes in your life and life becomes difficult. But that is no reason to stop. You put in more effort and keep moving ahead. And remember, the uphill will not always remain, then you will come to the downhill. Now, this is the good destiny that has come, and life is easy. But it will also not last. You will again come to the flat earth. So, the fruits of destiny will keep coming. There is absolutely no benefit in trying to find it out by visiting Jyotish and astrologers, because then that can make us fatalistic. Instead of that, focus on the effort that is in your hands.
Swamiji, yesterday only I was having a conversation with a friend about incremental growth and exponential growth. So, I feel the short formula, like you said, to growth is incremental. If you keep putting in the efforts, the outcomes are going to come maybe slowly, one by one, and all of that. Exponential growth, however, happens to maybe certain people, but that fraction, like you said, is very, very less. And what we have started doing as a generation, especially the Gen Z, the younger ones, and with this whole startup culture coming in, with the artificial intelligence intervening into so many areas of our life, what we have started to believe in our head is that success is exponential. If anything is not exponential, whether it's a spiritual experience success, or it's a material world related success, or it is success in an exam, or it's success in building a business or a relationship, everything has to feel, give me that feeling of ecstasy, that exponential growth or exponential happiness, not the incremental one. So how does one find contentment in the process of incremental growth that happens with step by step putting in really hard work every single day?
If we tie up our happiness with the goal, then the journey will seem like a great austerity. I am bearing this austerity in the hope of a future happiness. Instead of that, we must decide I have to enjoy the journey. If you can make the journey fulfilling, then who cares about the goal in any case? And that fulfillment should not come from what we achieve or what we have. Rather, it should come from what I am doing and from what I am becoming. It should be an inner fulfillment. With that understanding dawns, then there is never any failure. There is either success or there's learning.
Swamiji, one of the common challenges that come to people when they want to enjoy the process, or why they not enjoy the process, or we are becoming so goal oriented, is the exposure to a lot of information. And most of this information is about glorifying the people who have achieved the pinnacle of something. And the whole quest becomes to going after that. And if I'm not that, whatever else I am, you belittle your own growth, your own journey. So, how does one find a balance of their emotions and also mental well-being in this quest of achieving or shooting for something which is above and beyond? And
This is the biggest problem with Gen Z, which is the most stressed generation in history. That is what the statistics reveal. And the reason, I think, twofold. The first is it's a hyper connected world and they have so much of information. And the second is because of social media, the pressure to look good. So, this kind of thing is resulting in distorted values and distorted beliefs, right? Now, in nature, you have a large tree and you have a small tree. The small tree never feels an inferiority complex. It's happy to be what it is. So we must not define ourselves based on the opinions of others. A fish is a perfect, is in itself, a monkey is perfect, but if you evaluate a monkey by its ability to swim or a fish by its ability to climb the tree, then they will both have an inferiority complex. So we must decide that the goal is not to be as good as anybody else. Rather, the goal is to strive to be the best version of myself. You may have everything. Now, Jeff Bezos, as the richest or the second richest person 2, 3 years ago, he decided, I wish to be the first billionaire to go into space. But Richard Branson beat him by 15 days, and that made him unhappy.
right.
So he had everything, but the moment he is comparing, again the happiness is snatched away. So the idea of life is to run your own race.
Swamiji, like you spoke about comparisons, I don't know any dog who is trying to become a better dog, or any monkey who's trying to become a better monkey. It's just a very human quest. I think it is limited to only one species where we want to become better than some other people or than ourselves every single day. What is the starting point of this quest? Why it started? Why we have become like this?
Well, I think I'd like to distinguish between the two things. One is striving to be better than the other, and second is striving to be better than I was. When we are in this race of comparison, it is definitely the source of unhappiness. But this race of trying to be better is a natural spiritual urge. And where does it come from? It comes from our soul, which is part of the supreme soul that is perfect. And that is why the urge for perfection is like an auto program that is in the soul, which keeps telling us, I have not yet done in life what I need to do. I am yet to reach where I need to reach. So these three quests, they keep us progressing in our inner growth, which is the spiritual journey. Now, what is happening is that with so much of propaganda of materialism, all the values have got skewed, and the definition of success is all twisted. So success is defined by what you possess, by the position you hold, by the external things. And if you were to ask a spiritualist, they would say absolutely not. Success must be defined by these three parameters. Firstly, are you growing? Secondly, are you aligning yourself with your higher purpose and doing some meaningful things? And the third is, are you experiencing inner joy? And that is the spiritual definition or parameter for success.
Swamiji, I always save this question for the end of my podcast for my guests. I always ask them about their definition of success because, from the different perspectives and lens that people view their life from, depending on the experiences that they have cultivated, the work that they do, the exposure that they have in life, how do they see success? Because it is very fascinating to know that different people see success differently, but eventually all of that narrows down to two, three keywords, which are essentially contentment, fulfillment, a state of peace, inner joy. So I want to also speak about fulfillment here. It has become a buzzword, it has become a common jargon. It has also become a lens for people to kind of view their success or their life success from. If you're not feeling fulfilled at the end of the day, maybe it's not a good life that you have lived, right? So please help me explain the template of a fulfilled life. How does a fulfilled life look?
One 5-year old girl, she knocked on the door of a bungalow and an old lady came and opened. So, what do you want, little girl? She said, Auntie, will you buy this pencil from me for 1 rupee? What will you do for the money? She said, Auntie, we are building this hospital for 30 crore rupees. So the lady said, selling a pencil for 1 rupee, you want to build a 30 crore rupee hospital? Auntie, I'm not in it alone. That little boy on the other side of the street, he's also doing it. Now, this little girl is finding fulfillment, isn't it? A little girl is finding fulfillment, and a billionaire may not be finding fulfillment. So, fulfillment is the feeling when you go to sleep at night that I tried my best and I can justify my day to day. It comes from two things. The first is, did I try to improve? Did I grow as a person? And the second is, did I do the right things? Did I try my best? So that is why at JK Yoga, like you said, it boils down to two, three things. At JK Yoga, we have got this slogan: do good, be good, and feel good. The feel good is the sense of fulfillment which everybody wants. And the two keys to it: strive to be the best version of yourself. It's not how good you are, it's the delta change that you're trying to bring about. And the second is, strive to make a difference through your work. The talents that you have received, use them in a meaningful way to enrich this world or even the quality of life of one person. In your relationships, it's not about using others, but serving them. Through your leadership position, you're trying to facilitate the journey of everybody else. That is the doing good. And these two things result in feeling good or the sense of fulfillment.
Swamiji, there is an ongoing confusion between fulfillment and contentment, and also complacency. There are also people who are justifying being complacent with being content with their life. And contentment and fulfillment, although they go hand in hand, but they are not the same things. So I would like you to shed some light on this.
Now, contentment is the reverse of discontentment, and discontentment is one of the most unspiritual things. Satu bhavati daridri yasya trishna vishala. Manasi cha paritushte korthavan ko daridraha. The moment you are discontented with your lot, the unhappiness begins. Now the millionaire wants to be a billionaire, the billionaire wants to be Adani, Ambani, etc. Right? So sage Bhartri Hari said, who is poor in this world? Not somebody who has got less, but somebody who is discontented. On the other hand, when it comes to these spiritual pursuits of trying to do good and be good, we must never be contented. We must always be discontented. Otherwise, we will become complacent.
Yeah. So all of this boils down to the journey within, understanding our own inner world from where we process our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and events in our lives. And Swamiji, I designed this podcast with this intention to help people understand the wirings of their inner world, from where all this processing happens. Because I genuinely feel that once we set this processing in place, once we are able to kind of master our emotions or have some sense of, understanding of our emotions, then a lot of difficulties that I navigate through my life will become a little more, I won't say easier, but a little more simpler to look at challenging situations.
Absolutely, Shobhaji. The inner journey is the real thing. Now, religion refers to the externals, the customs, traditions, culture, rites, rituals, ceremonies, and the inner essence of it is spirituality. So, for example, if you are going to the Char Dham Yatra, that is religion, and your inner journey is spirituality. If you go and bathe in the holy Ganga, that is religion. And if you bathe yourself in sacred thoughts, that is spirituality. If we adorn ourselves with holy marks, that is religion. And to adorn our personality with good qualities, divine virtues, that is spirituality. Now, religion will please your grandmother, spirituality will please God. So, the externals is all very well. It is important, the external form. There's a trend amongst the millennials to say, I am spiritual, I'm not religious. So I don't need to go into any houses of worship, etc. But the question is that are they actually spiritual?
Right.
The external form is also necessary, but very often people get stuck in it.
Like you said, Swamiji, that it has become a very cool statement for young people to say that I am not religious, but I'm spiritual. That also comes from a space where how we were served religion. The way kids my generation, some 30, 40 years ago, 25 years ago, we were served religion in a very ritualistic manner, which looked very difficult to keep up with and which also seemed orthodox in certain practices. Like we were having a discussion about logic. So logic wasn't justifying to the practices that I was following. So this whole detachment to the religion happened. But there is also a large segment of society, people, our generation, who are now finding their way back to their roots, who are trying to connect with their religious practices also, which could be a fasting ritual, which could be a ritual of serving, dedicating a day in your week to going to a religious place of worship and serving people, and certain other practices. People are now kind of accepting these because it is now coming from a very inner contentment or inner joy space of their being. They're approaching it from a spiritual angle now. So both things going hand in hand. Also, there is a possibility. Do you see it as a possibility that?
Absolutely. What happened was that rituals were thrust onto the generation.
Right.
And until the generation before you, it was okay. The
Right.
parents ne keh diya, chalo, we will do it. Why? Doesn't matter, we've been told. But now in your generation, there was a rebellion that I need to understand, and I'm not going to do it blindly.
Right.
And that is why people moved away from religious practices. But at this, which is, in a sense, it's not completely wrong, because to be fully entangled in religious practices without realizing its essence is not recommended. And the holy books also say that, look, you must understand the essence of what you are doing. Otherwise, it becomes a physical drill. Just doing Jai Jagadish Hare, and the mind is rotating around in the world, will not do. Right? So, the inner connection, the purification of the mind is the most important. But then For that, we should see which rituals work for us. We must remind ourselves of the purpose of the rituals. And the scriptures are always telling us, remember, the mind is the cause of bondage and the mind is the cause of liberation. If you are sitting in the temple and thinking of a cinema house, you are actually in a cinema house from the spiritual point of view. And if you have gone to the circus but tuned away from it, and you have taken your mind to the feet of God, then you are as good as sitting in a temple. So we are where our mind is, and all the rules are helpers.
Swamiji, what we do, we are very smart people. So what we have started saying is that, I don't go to temples because God is everywhere. But actually, are you practicing it in any of the moments of your day, or you're just saying it as an escape to not visiting a temple? So all of that also needs to be kind of considered from our viewpoints. That we must not just escape it. If we are escaping one ritual, what is the other pathway that we are making to connect to our supreme self, or the supreme soul itself?
That's very right. That kind of danger always exists. What is required here is self awareness, which is the ability to be aware of where my mind is, what its defects are. And the second is sincerity. You can deceive the whole world, but you can't deceive God.
Swamiji, like you're talking about the dangers of this half baked knowledge about spirituality. Now, there are people who have listened about or learned about spirituality, but it's again a half baked knowledge because it's not coming to actions yet. So, I have heard that forgiveness is good, letting go is good, holding resentment is bad. And when in practice, I start to practice forgiveness, I am forgiving on a very surface level. In the deep inner level, I still hold resentment. I am letting go on a very superficial worldly level till the time it's justifying or saving my face. But on a deep inherent level, I'm still held on to things. I'm still getting manipulated by my triggers. My behavior is not transforming from within. So how does one bring about this actual inner transformation, which is not a slave of just the concepts or half-baked knowledge or practice of these concepts?
We have to keep this flame burning against our defects. So we must never justify, अरे ये तो माया का संसार है, सब ठीक है, etc. We must remain aware. At the same time, the law of incremental growth, it's going to be a journey. And spirituality is a long journey. So don't expect immediate transformations that we go from sinner to saint in a day. We will have to be very patient. When it comes to giving up resentment, forgiving, it is even more difficult than giving up attachments. People find it easier to let go of their attachments and more difficult to let go of their hurts,
Right.
right? But then you realize that the hurt is hurting nobody else but yourself. Like somebody said, that to harbor resentment is like to drink poison and hope the other guy dies. And the spiritual journey will require us to master forgiveness. Without that, you will remain stuck at a certain point in time.
So beautifully put, Swamiji. While you were saying all of these things, I was thinking of the areas of life where I need to practice forgiveness more, where I need to kind of redefine resentment and, look into it more deeply and break those ties for not for anybody else, but just for your own good also. If being as selfish as we are as a race, even if we look at it from that angle, then also it makes all the more sense to, and it takes a lot of humility to forgive. One's ego must be absolutely dissolved to practice forgiveness. Swamiji, what are the three ways to dissolve our ego?
The first is to think of the greatness of the universe and its creator. Now, Firefly may be egotistical in the darkness, but when the sun arises, then the firefly has got no basis for the ego. So, no matter what we do, when we look up, we see, oh my God, I have not done enough. The second is to remember are infinite defects, that we are all works in process. And there are many defects in us that we still need to work upon. And the third is, if I have done something good, remember the graces that were received. And then think that for all the graces I got, I should have done better. I have still not become a profitable servant of the Supreme. So always think on the lack that, oh my God, for all that I have received, I should have been doing so much more. When we are perceptive of this gap, it always keeps us humble. So the moment ego has dissolved completely, the soul is enlightened. And that is why one must definitely struggle.
Do you think you have been able to absolve your ego completely in your journey? It just is coming from a deep sense of curiosity, because when we are on this path and you are somebody who is a successor by a very, very big margin, I want to see how the journey pans out.
There is the concept of Johari window, four aspects of the self. The first is who I think I am. The second, what others think I am. The third, what I think that others think I am. And the fourth is what I really am.
Really am.
Right. So, what I really am, that God alone knows. What I think I am is different from what others think I am. You have asked, the inner thoughts. No spiritual personality will ever evaluate themselves positively, because that's a very unspiritual thing to do. So whenever they look inside, they'll say, Mo samakan kutil khalakami. The saints are saying there's nobody as fallen as myself. So if you were to ask me, have you dissolved your ego? For me to think I've dissolved it would mean that there's another ego
Another
attached,
ego.
right? But at the same time, I don't feel hurt. I don't harbor negativity, no matter what. So to that extent, I have achieved mastery over the mind.
Your journey gives me hope, and a lot of us hope who are in the similar quest, that the other end of the spectrum entails maybe these fruits for us.
People often ask me, just 10 days ago, I was at IIT Varanasi, and the student said, Swamiji, do you engage in negative thinking? So I'm teaching positive thinking day in and day out. And now the question is that, do you engage in negative thinking? Tell me privately in the ear, I'll not disclose to anyone.
Something like that I was trying to do.
So I do a self-analysis. When was the last time I engaged in negative thinking? And I can't remember over the last 10 years. So does that mean that there are no challenges? Absolutely not. People don't realize that this work of being a spiritual leader, it's tremendously challenging. Somebody who has been a part of my journey for the last 15 years, he's a CEO in Chicago, and he sees me work hard because every year I go and stay at his house for a couple of days. He says, from zero without resources, you created this worldwide organization. You have faced far more challenges than Jeff Bezos has in his journey. So, in the face of it, how do you retain positivity? There's a very simple formula. And this is the serenity prayer. And this serenity prayer is the one that I intuitively use and also teach. And what is that? Oh Lord, give me the strength to change the things that I can, the forbearance to tolerate the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, no matter what the problem, I always focus on the solutions. If there's a solution, solve it. If there's no solution, just tolerate it. And that is the process to remain serene internally.
So, from your lens, how does one tap into their full mental potential, or human potential rather?
So, Shobha ji, you have brought up a very important point, the inner strength. What is the difference between successes and failures in entrepreneurship? The failure is one who gave up after 4 attempts, and the success is one who failed 10 times but continued and succeeded in the 11th attempt. right? So it is with every journey in this world, as well as the spiritual journey or anything. And what will stand us in good stead is not that we did not fall, but every time we fell, we stood up again. And that is what requires grit. Grit is the inner strength. So, this path is not for those who want to remain in their comfort zone. This path is for those who are willing to step out. And what is required there is that grit, that inner determination. If we have it, if we have the right knowledge, if we are inspired, and if we are committed to practicing again and again and again, then these are the ingredients that will bring us to success.
Swamiji, we are talking about willpower here, which is a very big factor in resulting into the successes or the failures or achievements in our life, right? अब विल पावर के साथ प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हमें पता तो सारी चीज़ें हैं कॉन्सेप्ट के तौर पर, लेकिन मन नहीं करता करने का. How do we master our mind so that we go beyond, we transcend beyond these mood swings and these afflictions?
So, one was the grit that we talked about, and the other is the self discipline, the willpower. That willpower is very important. Deny the pleasurable and do the thing that is aligned with our higher purpose, with our higher values. Likewise, in all different aspects of your life, with a little bit of exercise, we grow in our self discipline, in our self abnegation. And then once you reach a tipping point, then it becomes easier. So then the mind realizes that I need to be subordinate and I cannot dominate.
The hustle is go to that tipping point. That is the real challenge.
Yes.
That is what needs to come in our everyday practice. I want to again bring in spirituality here. We have discussed spirituality in depth. I also want to now discuss the concept of spiritual awakening that West is talking a lot about, that people are talking a lot about, that Kundalini awakening, spiritual awakening. What exactly is it? What is it that people are chasing by awakening spirituality?
Spirituality is like a vast ocean, and people are all into different aspects of it in their personal practice. For somebody, the Kundalini is a big thing, and the awakening they are talking about is just a divine experience. And for others, that experience is like broken pieces of glass, and there's something even bigger. And for somebody else, there is something even bigger. In general, from our Vedic perspective, awakening means that you have now connected with the Supreme. So you're out of material bondage and you receive the infinite divine knowledge by grace, the infinite divine love, and the infinite divine bliss. And that is the enlightenment. Now there is no longer any ignorance because the ignorance was coming from Maya, the material energy, and you're out of the bondage of Maya. Okay. Now, for a person like me who is on the path of divine love, the enlightenment that I want is the Parabhakti, the treasure of divine love for God. Personally, for me, the highest enlightenment, the highest achievable goal is divine love for God.
Swamiji, how would we know that our spiritual awakening has happened? Is it a one time event or is it an ongoing process?
When you are hungry, you don't need an external proof. Your feeling tells you. When you are satiated, your experience lets you know. If somebody says that you tell somebody I'm full and they question, prove it. You say, what is the need of proof? My feeling is telling me. Likewise, when you get that which the soul was hungry for since endless lifetimes, the knowledge, the love, the bliss, you will know that I have got it. Okay? It's not just a one time experience. Once you're truly enlightened, there is no question of darkness enveloping it again. It will be for the rest of eternity. Sada Pashyanti. That will be the stage of enlightenment. So now, when you see an enlightened person, you will say, what is the difference between him and me? The difference is in the way they see the world. So when we were little children, we had this I-centric view. It's my desires, my wishes, my goals. Right? And we grew up into that, and then slowly we developed a higher sense of purpose, of interconnectedness. And the enlightened person will see the divinity in all of creation and the divinity in all beings. The enlightened person will always act from that platform of understanding.
Swamiji, so many beautiful learnings and teachings you have shared on this podcast. I'm truly very grateful to you for joining me here. On the parting notes, I just want to take some thoughts or messages from you for the youth, the people who are young. How do they find their way or their path towards connecting with their higher self?
I think uh, I would like to say that they should choose their happiness well. It's very easy to fall into the trap, to the allurement. Oh, this is so glittering, it must be attractive. Now, the youth must be introspective and deep thinkers. Not everything that promises happiness actually gives happiness. So, the first message to them is choose your happiness well. And the second is choose your beliefs well. Okay, these beliefs are fundamental to our personality. Somebody may be a nice person, but if I believe this person is a crook, then I will live in the reality that he is a crook. So our beliefs are defining our reality, and our beliefs are defining our potential. If I believe that I cannot succeed, there's no question of succeeding. Now, these beliefs must be based on good, reliable knowledge. Unfortunately, it's not a part of the educational system. The educational system is teaching you how to be a doctor, engineer, etc., and earn money. It's not teaching you how to be a better human being. It's not teaching you how to develop these qualities or to address the bigger questions. So, for that, they must approach the spiritual body of knowledge. Now, as for the Vedas, there is no need to contradict these. They are both bona fide material science and spiritual science. They both have their necessity in our life. The material science to understand the outer world, the spiritual science to understand the inner world. And both will need to be synthesized. So, in today's materialistic society, that dimension has been neglected. And I would urge the youth that many of their problems are due to lack of spirituality, and many of the tools that will help them manifest their potential, they will find in that spiritual body of knowledge. Let them try to cultivate it and then utilize it in their lives.
So we don't have to negate our outer world to gain wisdom in our inner world. Both of them can together exist, and we have to create that sort of balance and semblance of balance to maybe gain mastery on our life.
Absolutely. When you master the inner world, then you realize the perfection in the outer world. And then you understand why the Upanishads say Ishavasimidam Sarvam. Everywhere is the Supreme Lord. That realization comes when we perfect our inner world. So they can both go hand in hand.
Beautifully said, Swamiji. Thank you so much for joining me on the Journey Within podcast. Through this podcast, we are trying to inspire youth to understand the inner world also, which has been a neglected dimension, like you said. The outer world we are drawn towards, we have all the information, social media, distractions, the way we are raised in our families, our education system to give us a whole bunch of knowledge on the outer world. But this inner world dimension that is going amiss, I really hope that this episode with you, this conversation with you, will give them some window to introspect into their own lives and then find that entry into their inner world, and the life will kind of take care of itself from there on. Thank you so
Well,
much, Swamiji.
well, Shobhaji, I deeply appreciate the sincerity of your intention in enriching the lives of your listeners. And I wish them all the best and all success in your noble endeavor. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. Namaskar.
Namaste.
Thank you for watching today's episode. Please mention your favorite takeaways and what you've liked from this episode in the comment section so that we are able to know you better. We are able to know our audiences better. Please do hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Do support us because when you subscribe, YouTube algorithms know that this channel is doing something meaningful and they help us reach a wider audience. Your support means a lot. So if you are learning through this channel, if you're finding the conversations worth your time, please show your support. We really need it. Thank you so much.